This is 4, 5. 5. Going beyond the lanes. Number 5. 3, 2. Hello everyone, and welcome again to this another presentation of Going Beyond the Lanes. For those of you who do not know, and it's your first time here with us, Going Beyond the Lanes is a talk show here in Peoria, Illinois, and we're at Landmark, where that's where the lanes are, of course. And for those of you again who do not know, we are a group of bowlers who are here to discuss things that are outside of bowling, thus going beyond the lanes. What are those type of topics that we discuss? Well, we're not going to tell you all of them, but we will let you know that you can go and look at some of our previous videos, and there you will see topics that we say anything can be addressed. So, who are those bowlers? Well, we've got 2 bowlers and we've got 2 guests. So, of course, we got the coach.
Stroke cap in effect.
And over on the other side, we've got VB.
AKA Heavy, AKA Breaking News.
And this time we have a couple of professional guests. So, guys, we want you on your best behavior, okay? All right. We've got Mitch Forrest here and Marjorie Douglas. And both of these individuals are from the
Central Illinois Agency on Aging.
All right. So the purpose of today's discussion, because you know you've seen some of our previous videos, and they have been really good, fun, and as we would say, a doozy. This time we want to get to something that really requires some professional advice and some input from those who are skilled in this particular area. And this area is mental illness. With that, let's go to Mitch. Mitch, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I grew up in Champaign-Urbana, went to school down at Eastern and Charleston, and then went up to Evanston, did seminary up there, spent a year in North Dakota interning in a small church, a town of about 100 people, and I got snowed in. And
that was in June?
Right. Fortunately, my grandpa gave me his truck, it had snow tires, and I was able to get around, but it did get sad sometimes, being there on my own and away from family for the first time, and learning how to cook for the first time was mostly hamburger helper. And when I went back to seminary, I quickly looked for a bride that could cook. So, but in all seriousness, mental illness it's a real thing. I've experienced it. I've had loved ones who've experienced it. Marjorie and I work with people, either older adults or caregivers of somebody with a physical disability or some kind of illness. And especially during the COVID, it's been kind of isolating for some of these caregivers and older adults, not able to get out, not able to be with their friends, not able to go to church and be face-to-face with people they love. For caregivers, they might have had to isolate in place with people they love. They lost many people and family members. And all these kinds of things can trigger what we call depression. And depression, it's a little different than just feeling blue. I think we all have times when we feel a little bit down. We didn't do as well as we could have on the bowling lanes.
Oh, why is everybody looking at me?
Yeah.
Okay.
That is right on point right there. Yes.
Okay.
I'm messing around. That's a sore subject right now. That's too soon, Mitch. Too soon.
Or I arrived late for dinner and my wife was mad. Or I did something wrong at work. Or something happened with my kid and he's not doing as well as I expected him to do in school or something like that. We might go through some times where we don't feel as well or as energetic as we did. But when we see that going on for say 2 weeks at a time, and maybe your appetite starts to go downhill, maybe you start to stop talking to your friends, maybe you start to isolate. You were talking about video games. If you used to be kind of social and then all of a sudden it's strictly you and the video screen, you're starting to isolate, and that can start to feed on feelings of depression, feeling sad. Maybe it's a loss that triggers something. Grief and depression are somewhat related, but they're different. With depression, you actually start to feel some physical symptoms, fatigue.
Depression, you do?
Yeah. Some people, I was in a group, they don't feel enough energy to get up and go to the store. So what happens if we just can't feel like going to the grocery store? Well, you don't eat. So you see some things start to have a cyclical effect on an individual, and that can further lead them to ruminating about negative thoughts, maybe things that happened in the past, maybe a loss. But depression, a lot of times what happens is you start to turn inward. You start to be resentful. You start to feel bad about you. So that's where depression and grief can kind of separate. Grief, you're really sad because you're missing this person who you respected and you love. But in depression, a little differently, that sadness really turns inward, and you start to ask questions. What's the use anymore?
How do you expound on that, Marjorie?
One of the things is that it's just plain hard, and this COVID virus has brought so many people emotions to a higher level. They are very anxiety. I got to do this. I can't do this anymore. They're so used to being out, being social, and all of a sudden, shelter in place. Nobody goes anywhere. Nobody talks. Everybody's in a different room. COVID is on the rise, and they isolate. They cannot be able to express themselves, and it's hard on them. And one of the things that you have to really be careful of and watch is when you're talking to them, you have to make sure you can empathize with them. Empathy is so important, because if you don't, it's not, okay, I hear your problem now, I got to move on. You have to sit there and listen to them, because they are hurting, and them being able to talk to you, they're able to get it out. And one of the main things I saw that was so hard was the COVID and losing loved ones. Loved ones being sick in the hospital, not being able to go and see them. So therefore, they're there by themselves. Their relatives die by themselves. And then to have the homegoing services. No one can come, only a certain amount, because of COVID restrictions and because of the governor's orders and guidelines. the funeral directors are put in a very pressured position because they're used to people being able to come and view their loved ones, being able to have a service, and all of a sudden, no more than 25%, because these are the guidelines. So therefore, they have to go and figure out a way. I can't see my loved one. I can't go to the viewing. So how am I going to get through coping with this, the loss? Because I now don't have closure. I'm not able to see them.
So that brings on depression.
And that brings on a lot of depression. And then even, you know, of course, the funeral directors and the mortuaries streamline the services. But it's nothing like being in the sanctuary and being around your other family. You're isolated at that point. Even though you get the opportunity to see the homegoing service, it's nothing like being there where you can actually view them. You can actually say a final goodbye to them. And also, even when they get ready to bury them, okay, you sit here, you sit here, you sit, okay, you got members that are crying so hard because at one point they were healthy, and then they saw them just shrivel down to nothing and just gone, just that quick.
How did the guidelines that the government put for people dealing with COVID, how did those guidelines affect you guys dealing with patients that you dealt with over the years?
It was hard because I am a people person and I like to talk. So they couldn't talk to me, and I would see the sadness on their face. Like when they would come to the agency, you know what, you can't come in because no one can come in yet. Okay, so, well, why? But Miss Douglas, I need to talk to you. I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. Call me on the phone and then we can talk. They were happy about that. And, well, what about my paperwork? I tell you what, have some, stop by. I'll meet you at the door. I'll take it from you. I can still help you. You just can't come in yet because we can't allow the clients to come in. Okay, so then what? Can you, and oh, I'll follow through and I'll call you back. And they were happy about that. But, you know, they were very in a stressful position, and especially with the seniors, okay? Because the seniors want to talk and they already are in an isolation because they don't have, a lot of their family is gone, or they do have family and they just don't plain talk to them. You know, so when they find someone, and we deal with seniors 60 and older, and a lot of the younger people are, you know, facing it as well. I'm a senior myself. I'm 64 years old. So I know what it's like, and you know, even though I'm fortunate and blessed to have a good family support system, good support system on the job, you know, good support system at home. My husband is a very good support to me, Melvin Douglas. So, you know, all these things, but if you don't have someone there to talk to and relate to, that's a hurt feeling. And it's hard for them. And I was so glad when the governor lifted the restriction whereby we could see clients by appointment. And they didn't have to go away from the door sad or crying.
Right.
So they took advantage of that. They come, when can I come? Can I come now?
Right.
You know, okay, how long can I stay? And I said, well, you're gonna have to wear a mask. I'll wear a mask.
So come in.
I'll wear a mask. I can come and talk to you.
Are there different, I'm asking you, but I'm asking you, are there different degrees to mental illnesses? Are there different, categories or areas, you know?
That I would say that I'm not a professional, but I'm sure there is.
There
My question to piggyback that, are there different degrees of depression? What about the ages?
Right.
You mentioned seniors.
Yeah, the seniors.
Are there, did you or have you seen what I would consider young adults?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's where I work for Tazwood Mental Health Facility.
Yes.
So I have a real soft spot for the kids.
When you say kids, meaning
so
baby
adolescents.
kids?
So I'm saying as young as 8 years old.
Oh wow.
We have kids coming in, and so their stories are just at that young of age where they're going through things is just unheard of, and it could be the littlest thing. Like a lot of them come in with their grandparents because mom's not there, dad's not there, and they're stuck with it, and they don't understand why. And so we take them in as early as 8 years old. So when they come in the door, my challenge that I do is to make them leave smiling, because they're all mad when they come in. Right. So I've learned different techniques that I do, like when they're in for an appointment and they have to do paperwork and so forth. We have coloring books. That's a good tool to use.
Right.
For them to get, just to open up a little bit. Coloring. When they leave, I say, hey, when you have a good visit with your actual counselor, I tell them all the time, come see me. I bought off my own money. I went and bought suckers. Just as if, like when we was kids, you go to the doctor, it's no different.
Right.
It's
That's
no
right.
different. This is just a regular doctor's appointment. Don't look at this as something's wrong with you or you're in some special place. So I give them all suckers, and they look forward to just that little, it's not a lot, but it's a lot to them.
Right.
So that's what.
So there is age group.
8 all the way up to 60 and above.
Right, there's 60.
Yeah.
And then you got, so you got to remember, you got young mothers, okay, that have children, and they're frustrated because their children can't get out, they can't socialize, they can't play. So that's pressure on the parents, now what am I going to do, because this child is jumping off the walls.
Right.
Because they want to get outside. And, because little children, you have to keep their minds active. Because they'll tell you after a while, I don't want to read, I want to play.
Right.
Well, you got to be physical. And then, whereas they had money available where they could take them out, when COVID hit, jobs ended.
Correct.
Which made it a crunch. It's enough for me to have money to put on the table. Before they got stimulus, a lot of them got just limited amount. And you have to remember, the stress of it was people that were classified middle class. Nice cars. They're in a food line now.
Yeah. It's either you rich or poor.
You're rich or poor.
It's no middle class, basically.
Right,
no
and
more.
then they're in a line, they're frustrated. Some of them are in a line all day long just to get a box of food.
So how does this come to, because that's economics, but how does this come back to an illness? It sounds like somebody will say, that's everyday problems. Get over it.
So give you an example. You don't have kids in the house. When you have your child, you really only have them in the house for maybe 6 to 8 hours of time.
Yes.
Now they're in the house 24 hours. They're not in school. They don't have no outlet. They don't have no activities that they're able to do. They're just home, running around in the refrigerator all day. You know what I'm saying? So there's a big
layer on top of that. You're a grandparent doing that, maybe 80 years old, and you've got generations of grandkids.
Yeah, 3 or 4 generations.
Yeah. So you're trying to cope with your physical disability and trying to run after this 5-year.
So you got levels of things that people are dealing with.
Yes.
And I can see easily how that could be a mental issue. Because you're trying to deal with things as an 80-year-old where a 40 or 50-year-old should have been doing as a parent. So now you're taking that role on, and you may have a disability. Yeah, I can see.
This is what we would call a nervous breakdown, right? That's what happens?
Yes.
Good.
That's what you mean
appetite. The appetite for that.
Yeah. And the reason,
So you think about, real quick, I've seen families come in and the children receive counseling the adult and the grandparent separately, because the grandparent, the children are the ones that's most hurt,
Right.
because the parents aren't there. They're trying to do right so that they can be back in the children's lives every day instead of once a week. Then the grandparent is trying to adapt and trying to do the learning part, the computer part.
Ooh, which is hard.
So which is
Learning the language.
The language.
the language. You know, it's so many, like you said, layers to this. So you might see 3 generations of mental illness going on at the same time. So
Right.
They're going through school just like
Just
the,
like
just
the
like
young-
the whole
yeah,
kid is.
right, just like
Yes.
that,
they're going
right.
through school
Yes.
trying to figure out.
trying to figure that out, right?
Trying to figure, okay, then you got to remember, you got seniors, okay? You got seniors that are in nursing care facilities. They're used to getting out, and now their loved ones have to go to the window
Yeah.
and talk to them.
Right. They can't play bingo.
They can't
in
play
the,
bingo.
you know.
They can't. Okay, all right. And the worst thing you can do, because some of the seniors are very spry. Now, some of them, you know, well, they want to lay around. But most of the seniors, they like being go-getters.
Yeah.
So you take away
The
the
independence.
socialization and the
And the
independence.
right.
You tell them, okay, here's what we're going to do. We are all officially quarantined. No one can come out of their rooms. At one point, one of the facilities that was hit with COVID very bad, they actually had a lockdown. They had to stay in their
their
apartments
rooms.
for
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Right.
They could not come out.
Right.
Yeah, I noticed that that you saw a drastic difference with the pandemic, which it affected everyone. But
Yeah.
let's just go back to, there's 50, 100 folks in here every Friday night during league. Is there a way that we can identify, we think of someone that, is there a sign? We can see someone with a limb that's injured, but can you see an illness that's a mental illness?
Sometimes
It's more difficult.
it's more difficult.
You might, if you see somebody sitting,
by themselves.
by themselves to the side,
Isolating
kind of
themselves.
isolating, having difficulty with that social interaction. They might try, but
Right.
because of the lack of energy, part of it in depression, it's harder to be received by others, but they'll try. It's good for them folks to be in a place like this with
Right.
others and just try to test the waters even,
Right.
because that in itself can be therapeutic.
And sometimes they'll tell you, sometimes you understand, they would like, you say, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. But they're not. That's one of the signals. Or they'll snap at you. Why do you think I'm not okay? Why? What's the problem?
defensive now.
They're very
Being
defensive.
yeah.
So then there's an issue there. And even though there is a whole crowd of people around them that they can fellowship with, I'll sit right over here. And you still have that even with your seniors now and with people that are not very trustful of people because of what they've encountered. And that trust factor's not there. So when my seniors come, they're my seniors. Come on, mother, come and sit by me. Okay, where do I sit? And they're comfortable because you make them feel that way. But at the same time, you can do all that you do, and sometimes they still will lash out. Why you need to know that? I don't have to tell you that. Or I'm not a baby. I'm a grown person. My kids talk to me like I'm a baby.
Yeah.
And I get after them about that. So, you kind of have to, okay, let me back up here. Because, it happens.
That's a nice segue. What we'll do is we'll come back, and the second part of our session here, what we'll do is we'll come back and talk about how to cope with individuals, or how do we relate to individuals who may have mental illness. So we're going to take a break for the moment. We're going to have our tip of the day, because this is a show about bowling, and we do have a coach on deck.
Right.
So with that being said, we'll come back in just a couple minutes, take a look at our tip for the day. Coach, you did it again. You know what? I'm telling you, man, you never cease to amaze me.
That's because I do what I do.
There you go.
Does what he does. Welcome back. We are pleased to have with us our guests again. We have Mitch Forrest and Miss Marjorie Douglas. They are here to help us talk about mental illness and how to be able to just deal with the subject overall. It's such a layered and a wide spectrum of issues within that topic, but we figure this time we may just have to come back. We obviously will have to come back and deal with others. But what about just how to cope with it? I mean, we have us as caregivers. When I say us, some people may say I'm off too, but you know what? Let me stop right there. I'm gonna put a pin right there because you know what? That's a good point. We label mental illness as we shrug it off a lot. Oh, he's just off. You know, and
Well, definitely in our community.
in our community, right? In our community, we do. We just everyone out there probably knows someone like, oh, that's just crazy. Leave him alone.
Right.
Right.
It's true, but that's a different subject. So, how do we deal with? Let me try it this way. Serious note. Someone says, "Oh, I have cancer." You go, "Oh man, I'm sorry. You know, I hope you get better." And somebody says, "Oh man, I'm going through. My mind is going crazy." "Oh, you get better. Don't worry about it. Just pray, baby." You know what I mean?
Oh.
How do we deal with that stigma that it's really not as serious as some other things that are out there?
One of the things you're doing now is just talking about, bringing it out in discussion. And the more we just bring it out in actual conversation, I think the more people understand, hey, you know, this is just another part of life. Kind of to normalize it. Yeah. One thing that I learned in a group with other people with depression is that one guy said, you know, I'm more than my illness. My depression does not define me. You know, I'm Mitch. I'm not depression. So, and that can give you a sense of strength. You know that, you know, don't. It's kind of like people with disabilities. You know, somebody in a wheelchair. Don't look at my wheelchair. Look at me.
Look at you.
Right.
That's a good one.
Right.
That's a good
That's it.
one.
And
That's a good one.
I have dealt with cancer. Okay, I am a almost 7-year 4-stage cancer survivor. So I understand. And when they tell me, well, you know, I have breast cancer, which is what I was diagnosed with, or whatever, I give them a hope, and I tell them, don't give up. You'll be okay. You'll be just fine. And I know I had an episode when I was going to the cancer center. There was a room full of people. So I went in because it was my time to have see my doctor, and then for her to send me to treatment. And everyone in the room were looking at each other. And then pretty soon they all started looking at me. And then no one said anything, nothing, until one gentleman spoke up and said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Well, I'm in treatment for breast cancer." He said, "But you look too good. Why are you here?" And it didn't, okay, so he broke the ice, because that's when everybody started, "Why, how long have you been coming here?" But before then, everybody they were shut down until that one man spoke up.
Finally
and
broke the ice.
He broke the ice, and then I began to explain to them, and I began to tell them, keep hope alive. Don't give up. And they were really happy. So then they began to chirp like birds. But all before that, it was like, okay, we really want to ask her a question, but we don't know how. And we don't want her to be defensive because we don't know her. But then after that man asked that question, that's when, and I answered it the way I did, that's when everybody talked.
Opened up. Vince, before you get to him, normalcy. What's normalcy?
Normalcy.
Yeah. When you said, we got to make it a sense of normalcy.
Just reducing the stigma around it. That there's something
Compared to what?
defective about me because I get blue on Tuesdays, or just being able to talk about it like you would diabetes.
So is that a media thing then?
Piggybacking on something you just said, as far as dealing with cancer, with me dealing with stage 4 kidney disease, where I'm doing dialysis, and sometimes you do get to that moment where you're like, man, really don't want to have to go have to deal with this every day. But when you have when you're striving for life, knowing that, okay, this is what I have to do, you adjust and you make it normal. So you adjust whatever you're doing, because one, you want to live, and two, you adjust your living patterns, your lifestyle accordingly. The one thing that I've, in dealing with this disease,
Because you got depressed initially, no?
They always have yearly exams, and they do a mental health exam.
Right.
And the weirdest part is all the questions, the majority of the questions deal with depression. Do you feel depressed? Do you, stay at home, half the day? And it's just questions that I can see where people get themselves in a mode of depression because of what they're dealing with. But it's your mindset. If you go into it with the mindset, and when you said that, I kept saying exactly how I look at it. I don't go into it with the mindset of this is hard to deal with and man, I don't want to deal with it. I go in with the mindset, let's go. Today is my day. Let's go do it because I need it. And it's that mental capacity to say, all right, this is what I got to deal with. And if you go at it with for me, gusto, I go at it head in. I know what I got to do. Let's go do it. So I know 5 a.m. in the morning on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I always tell my guys, all right, I got to go. Can't hang out tonight. I got to be up early. I got things I got to do. So that's that normalcy that he's talking about.
Yeah.
And you can make that a normal.
You have to make it. It's a routine.
Routine.
Me,
exactly.
myself, it was every Monday during the time I was in treatment. 7:30, 8 o'clock, Cancer Center, blood work, finish that, doctor.
Yeah, it's 3 stops.
Finish with doctor, treatment room. And once you go in the treatment room, and everyone in there is normal.
Exactly.
Because that's what we were all there for the same reason.
Same thing, exactly.
And one time I asked during the initial stage, I said, okay, well, can I go out? No, you can't go out, Marjorie. Miss Marjorie, you have to stay in. Once you're in the treatment room, you can't go out.
Right.
You got to stay in the room because you're hooked up. So what you do for normalcy, you sit around and you talk to them. I've had them sit next to me and start crying. And I tell them, oh, it's okay to cry. I was emotional. I wasn't real emotional because I knew I wanted to live. I didn't want to go into a state of being so depressed. And even if I had to shed tears and cry, I did not want to do it in front of my husband because it was hard enough on him to have to see me to go through it.
Can I stop you there? Because that's what I want to help the audience at this point to talk about how to cope with someone that has mental illness, a caregiver, so forth and so on. Any experiences, any suggestions?
It's hard in the African American community to cope because it's not diagnosed. It's shunned upon as you're weak. It's an embarrassment to us. So the one thing that I've seen a lot of, and I hope people continue to watch, is the NBA players of all races coming out They got millions of dollars,
And
but
still
they
do
talk
it.
about
Yes.
how they've had
Yes.
mental illnesses that's going on before they got that, and that they're still battling that. So it's the one thing about mental illness is it's not prejudice to what you are.
No, that's true.
It affects
Everybody.
weak,
Yeah.
poor,
Yes.
rich, old,
That's
young,
right. That's
all everybody. So in my community, we first need to have the people come forth and say, something's wrong with me, and not be stereotyped as crazy, you're off, just being willing to come. And that's where it starts, that we see, because there's a lot of people walking around right now, we have no idea that something's going on with them. You just look at them and shrug it off, like you have a better day tomorrow.
So are there any strategies or approaches that you could use to help someone to deal with it?
So any kind of physical movement, exercise can be positive, and we know that exercise releases
Yes.
some chemicals that
Okay.
make you feel good, as well as what you guys were doing, just the banter, laughing, having some, lighthearted
I
conversation.
never get depressed around these characters. They give me a lot of material, trust me. I'm always gonna have something to laugh at with these guys.
Laughing, very therapeutic.
Really?
Yes.
Yes,
You can tell a
yes.
good joke or
Yes.
make somebody smile.
Really?
That sets off these chemicals.
Right.
Orphans.
Yes.
And see, I had one of my seniors who lost her daughter some years ago, and then she lost her grandson. And she is very, very charismatic. She loves to talk about the Lord. She talks about Jesus. She's sweet as she can be, and she likes to sing. Oh, do you have a song for me today? She, oh yes, I have a song. And her daughter, I said, it's okay. Mother, go ahead and sing a song for me. I'd like to hear your song. And she started to sing, and I mean she sang. And I told her daughter, I did like this. Don't stop her from singing.
That's right.
Let her sing. And she said, well now I can sing a little bit, but she really did sing. But she felt so good to know that someone
Somebody, yeah.
was concerned about her and didn't, no, you can't sing, come on, let's go now, because you're getting ready to get out of hand. No, she enjoyed the fact that I told her, Mother, sing a nice song for me. I'd like to hear your song. And do you know what you're going to sing? No, but I'm going to sing a song for you. And she did.
That's wonderful. I mean, grabbed onto something she can still do.
Right.
She enjoyed, and music is powerful.
Yes,
it
it
gets
is.
in under our subconscious, and it's the universal language. And it gets through where other things can't.
Right. And they love to dance. Dance. A lot of singers have, where they have the square dance, whatever type of dancing, and they enjoy that. They get to dress up and be pretty and dance. And so that helps.
What would you recommend for a caregiver that may find themselves getting depressed because they're tired of the struggle of helping the person that's struggling?
Sometimes a support group of like-minded people who have similar experience
Okay.
can help. We have support groups for caregivers and grandparents raising.
And you are where again?
Excuse me.
Where are you again?
At both. Central Illinois Agency on Aging. So we have contracts with Bradley University Counseling Research to help put together some support groups for these caregivers that, sometimes they do feel isolated, but when they can get together with people that going through similar situations and bouncing things off one another, whether it's a joke or just an experience, that helps to validate, normalize their experience.
How often do they meet?
So in the COVID, it was tough.
Of course.
They didn't do the groups anymore. They were all on the phone.
Okay.
But normally it's at least a couple times a month.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And those grandparents, they were really happy.
They were really happy.
happy.
And then a lot of time in Mitch's program, they would have a caregiver night where the caregivers would get the chance to come out and
Gotcha.
just
Celebrate
dress
them.
pretty
Gotcha.
and celebrate.
That's nice.
And then, of course, if they had to bring the children, you know, I usually was one of the babysitters. So I kept the kids all in one room while they enjoyed themselves and had a good time so they could release.
Yeah.
And then also,
She needed a pay raise.
I'm telling you, I never jumped so much rope. I'm like, okay, now, how about I sit down and, nope, want to jump? And I played ball to the point where I was sore my own self. I'm like, no, wait a minute now. How about we take a break? No. Then they wanted to color. I'm like, now listen, Miss Marjorie is not of age to color a lot. You know, after a while, my hands hurt, so I had to refrain from doing so much coloring. But we had fun. We would jump rope and just have a good time, and that's what they wanted. And you know, they get the opportunity to express themselves too.
We know that your agency deals with concentrates on the aging. However, there are other resources in the community for Peoria for youth. And so, do you know any other resources out there that people can go
So,
to?
yeah, definitely like Family Corps, the Children's Home,
Children's home, yeah.
Lutheran services.
Lutheran Social Services.
Well, at one point, then Catholic Charities too, because they deal with a lot of the seniors. And a lot of the seniors may not have transportation, but they're able to provide them with transportation through Catholic Charities as long as they are able to walk. Because, you know, they have to be able to walk.
Right.
And, you know, not in a wheelchair. So they take them on different outings and take them to the stores. So, you know, and then we have transportation system at the agency where they have to get registered with City Lift, but you know, they take them where they have to go to the doctor, you know, or where they can get out, have an out. They bring them down to the river place, take them down there, and sit there, you know, for a while, and however long they have to, and go back and pick them up. Then we had Celebrating Generations, which was really good until COVID hit. And Anita Brown, our human resource director, she always put together a lot of fun-filled activities for that day. And it would 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock. And they would go pick the seniors up, or the seniors would drive, and they come dressed up, they come sharp. And come over to the embassy, and they sat, they had their lunch, they got to dance, they got to listen to music, they got to play games. And I know one year we had a cakewalk. So we had and they loved that. So they got the opportunity to enjoy themselves. And then when they were ready to go, the bus was there to take them back home, or take them back to the facility where they live. And they just enjoyed themselves. They got
the ability to release some steam, if you will.
right to come out, right, and that's what they did.
Still show their independence.
They showed their independence. They were able to talk amongst each other,
Right.
you know, and talk about different things. They were going, how many grandchildren do you have? How many? Well, you know, they weren't shut up. They were, and some of them would get up and have the ability to want to sing a little bit, or they just had a ball.
So they weren't limited.
They weren't
didn't,
limited.
You know.
The way that Miss Brown structured is that they had fun.
Right.
They had fun, and even our supervisor now, Lori C. Lori has a lot going on with our seniors. She is my immediate supervisor, and she has the coffee classes where she goes or either I've gone over there with her over to what used to be Courtyard Estates. And they have the coffee collection. They sit there and they read the newspaper to them. They tell them about the current events. They have donuts. They have coffee. You know, then she had another activity that they have on Thursday evening called Streetwise, where they bring their grandchildren. So they just enjoy that.
So, all right. So we know there are a lot of resources that are out there, and we have to put a cap on it. I'm going to ask if you two will promise us that you'll come back again,
Yes.
Coach. You got you want to recap with them? Is there anything that you want to mention?
Listening to the word normalcy drove home for me because of things that I'm personally dealing with. But being able to make things normal makes sense.
Right.
And when you're dealing with either mental illness or depression or whatever it may be, to bring it out into the open is making it normal. So
Yes.
people then don't feel like there's a stigma. I don't want to say something that I'm dealing with because someone may make fun of me. But if they see what we're doing to make it normal to come out and talk and then have resources to help you deal with whatever you're dealing with, it means the world. It means the world to a lot of people. So if it's just one that hears or sees or us as a group, I think we make things normal when we joking with each other, when we talk about them endorphins, you laughing.
Right.
I've learned smiles are contagious.
Right.
And
That's
it'll
right.
make things all right.
Vince?
Yeah, I think it's hard to be mad and stay mad at someone if they're smiling. You know, all the time. But Mitch, I really appreciate you and Miss Marjorie for coming, because it gives me also some tools to take back to me, to my job, and keep. I'm relatively still new at it, but I'm always been a people's person. So that helps me go a longer way as far as having the background and the education part. I know people, and my job is I challenge myself to make sure that everyone leaves with a smile on their face.
Right.
Especially the kids. Like I said, I got a sore spot for the kids.
Right.
So that's what I take, as far as that goes.
Mitch, you can wrap it up.
Just a privilege to be here. Thank you guys for what you're doing, bringing type of subjects out in the open, discussing them. I think that's the way we heal our communities, bring people together.
I would like to ask when you all come back out, because we will come to this subject again, and I would like to talk about the different types, because I think like schizophrenia is a type of mental illness, right?
Yes.
So that's us kind of alluding to earlier when we talk about categories, and there are things that we can do as individuals to help one another, but there are some things that only professional medical assistance is needed for, and we want to be able to help people to recognize those things or look for signs or something like that if that's possible. And so with that, we do want to thank everyone for again tuning into this another edition of Going Beyond the Lanes. We of course want to thank Landmark Lanes for allowing us to be here. Thank our sponsors, CustomBowlingJerseys.com, and we want to thank our special guests. Yay! You did so good.
Great job. Very well.
Thank you.
And you all take care, and we'll see you all again.